They say fire leaves nothing behind but ash. But sometimes from those ashes, whispers remain, haunting, accusing, impossible to silence. You've likely never heard her name in your history books. There are no portraits, no statues, no songs sung in her memory. Queen Seraphina was erased, deliberately, because when a queen burns her own kingdom to the ground, history does not forgive. She ruled for less than a decade, but in that time she transformed a golden age into an inferno. Some call her a madwoman, others a misunderstood martyr, but the truth is much darker and far more tragic. This is not the tale of a wicked queen. This is the story of a woman born into chains of silk, taught to smile while drowning, and crowned with a fire she never asked for. A woman who learned that sometimes to kill a curse, you must burn the kingdom that cast it. Seraphina was born under a crimson moon, the kind that made midwives whisper and priests tremble. The queen mother, Elira, gave birth in silence. Her scream caught in her throat as her daughter entered the world surrounded by flickering candlelight and the distant howls of wolves. In the eastern kingdom of Velmoura, it was said that children born on the blood moon carried old magic. Dangerous magic, magic that should never be named. Seraphina was a quiet baby, too quiet. She rarely cried, rarely laughed, and often stared into space with eyes the color of molten gold. Her hair, as red as the dying sun, earned her the nickname, the Flameborn. Behind closed doors, nobles whispered that she was cursed, that fire followed her, even as an infant. They weren't wrong. By age 4, the tapestries in her nursery had caught flame 3 times without cause. By 6, a steward was found charred after entering her chamber without permission. Terrified, her father, King Malric, ordered tutors in the arcane to train her in secrecy. They called it containment, not teaching. She was taught to restrain her emotions, to speak only when spoken to, and to pray daily that the flames would not rise. But deep inside her, Seraphina knew the fire wasn't something she summoned. It was part of her. It protected her. It felt her pain. Every time someone tried to suppress her, the flames responded. Despite her peculiarities, Seraphina was intelligent, poised, and curious. She was drawn to ancient tomes, the stories of queens who led rebellions, of sorceresses who sacrificed themselves for love or vengeance. She found a friend in an old librarian, Master Kelwin, who secretly fed her these tales. From him, she learned about the old ways, about women with power who were written out of history, labeled heretics or monsters because they refused to kneel. At 13, tragedy struck. Her mother died in a sudden blaze in the Western Tower. The official word was accident, but servants later whispered that Seraphina had been seen running from the tower, her nightgown scorched and her eyes wild. The queen's death cast a long shadow, but King Malric, shaken by grief and fear, pulled further away from his daughter. She was locked away for a year. When she emerged, she was changed. No longer the timid girl of golden eyes and gentle hands, Seraphina was quiet fire incarnate, controlled but intense. She did not smile easily. She spoke slowly and precisely, and she never cried, not even at her coronation. At 20, Seraphina ascended the throne after her father succumbed to a mysterious illness. Many suspected poisoning, but no one dared accuse her aloud. The nobles braced for chaos. Instead, she ruled with a sharp mind and steady hand. Her reign began with reforms. She freed debt-bound laborers, redistributed land from the rich to the poor, and established fire sanctuaries, quiet temples where those with unusual gifts could live without fear. But as her power grew, so did resistance. The nobles despised her. The church condemned her fire as demonic. Whispers of rebellion simmered. Still, Seraphina pressed on, determined to build a new kind of kingdom, one that didn't fear magic, especially not the kind that lived within her. She surrounded herself with scholars, healers, mystics, and warriors loyal to her, not the throne. And yet, the court called her court the burnt circle. A mockery at first, until they realized how fiercely loyal her chosen few truly were. Her greatest enemy was Grand Inquisitor Veric, a man who once served as her father's advisor. He led the Church of the White Flame and saw Seraphina as an abomination. Veric began inciting uprisings in rural provinces, branding her as the Flame Witch Queen. He tortured those suspected of using magic, sending their scorched bodies to the castle gates in silent protest. Seraphina warned him twice. On the third time, she burned one of his abbeys to the ground. That act, public, defiant, and unapologetic, was her undoing. War erupted across the kingdom. The nobles aligned with the church. Seraphina's once loyal guard splintered. Cities fell into chaos, and yet she refused to step down. "I will not extinguish myself so they can relight the chains," she said to her court the night before the siege of Velmoura began. In the final days, her once glorious city turned to smoke and blood. She ordered the commoners to evacuate. She stayed behind. When asked why, she simply said, "This kingdom was born in fire. Let it end in fire." And so it did. She stood on the palace balcony, robes trailing like embers, and raised her hands. What followed was never recorded in detail. Some say she summoned a dragon of flame. Others claim the skies turned red and fire rained like tears. All agree on this: the entire royal district burned to ash, and her body was never found. Only her crown remained, melted, twisted, fused into the blackened stone. Velmoura never recovered. After the Great Burning, the eastern lands fractured into warring factions. The church claimed victory, but lost credibility as the people remembered how they had persecuted children and magic users. The nobles fought among themselves, and what was once a shining kingdom became a land of wandering ghosts and abandoned temples. But Seraphina's name, it would not vanish. In hushed voices, people began to speak of her, not as a tyrant, but as a martyr, a protector. Mothers named their daughters after her. Secret fires were lit on the anniversary of her death. A cult, known as the Emberborn, spread through the land, preserving her teachings, her reform scrolls, and what remained of the fire sanctuaries. They claimed she was not dead, that she had become flame itself, watching over those who had been born like her. Years later, a traveler stumbled across a hidden underground room beneath the ruins of Velmoura's palace. On the walls were carvings, drawn in charcoal and blood, depicting a woman surrounded by fire, raising a sword above a broken crown. At the center of the room sat a single object, a book bound in scorched leather. Its title read only, "The Flame Remembers." Inside were Seraphina's writings. She wrote of her loneliness, her fears, her anger. She spoke of wanting to be loved, not feared. Of dreaming of a world where a girl born under a blood moon wouldn't have to hide. And in the final passage, dated one day before the burning, she wrote, "They will not remember me kindly, but if the fire spares even one child like me, it will have been worth it. Let them call me cursed. I have always been a daughter of flame, and no one, not kings, not priests, not gods, will smother that light again." To this day, that final page is copied and passed in secret. Some say Seraphina never intended to survive, that she chose to disappear, her final act not one of destruction, but of liberation. A queen who saw a kingdom too corrupted to save and decided to build a myth strong enough to ignite futures. Now listen closely. Next time you hear the wind howl through broken castle walls or see the fire dance too wildly in a hearth, remember this story. Remember the queen they tried to forget, the girl who was born with a fire the world feared too much to understand. Queen Seraphina is gone from history books, her name scratched out, her image erased, her legacy stolen. But fire doesn't die. It waits, it watches, and when the time is right, it returns. So the next time you hear a whisper in the embers, or see a child with golden eyes stare too long into the flames, don't look away. Because they say the flame-born queen still walks among us. And when the world forgets her one final time, she will burn it all again. If this story sparks something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a tale born of flame.